Behind me, Zuma's team is arguing that the court should actually reconsider the judgment that it's handed down a couple of weeks ago and in effect change its mind because it made a mistake. That's according to Zuma's lawyers. But as the constitutional expert told me a little while ago, the facts aren't being disputed here. Zuma walked out of the Zondo Commission. He didn't reappear when asked to, and he also didn't defend himself when the Constitutional Court heard the case. So it's unclear, according to the experts, what legal argument Zuma's lawyer is using at the moment. Dali Mpofu, who is Zuma's lawyer, also hasn't asked that Zuma be released from jail while the court considers its response, because there's no question, analysts tell me, that there's going to be a ruling on the matter today or in the next couple of days. So we're going to have to wait and see how that plays out. But as I said, police are keeping an eye on the situation, and the courts will make a ruling when they're good and ready. Mahia?
All right, Angelo, thank you for keeping us updated. CGTN's Angelo Coppola joining us live from Johannesburg, South Africa. Well, let's remain in the country. President Cyril Ramaphosa has announced the country will remain on adjusted alert level 4 of lockdown until July the 25th as COVID-19 infections rise there.
For the last 2 weeks, the country has consistently recorded an average of nearly 20,000 daily new cases. At present, the country has over 200,000 active COVID cases. In the last 2 weeks, over 4,200 South Africans have lost their lives to COVID-19.
The president said all social, political, and religious and other gatherings remain prohibited. A curfew remains in place from 9 p.m. until 4 a.m. Only those with permission may leave their homes during this period. The sale of alcohol remains prohibited, and schools will remain closed until July the 26th. Further afield, Australia's most populous state, New South Wales, has reported 112 new local cases, its biggest daily rise this year. Almost all the infections are in its capital city, Sydney. The city is enduring a hard lockdown for the third week to contain a Delta variant outbreak. The state premier said of Friday's cases, at least 34 people spent time in communities while infectious. She also said the figure of new cases in coming days would determine whether Sydney's lockdown would be extended. A COVID-19 state of emergency is kicked in Japan's capital, Tokyo, which is just 11 days away from the opening of the Summer Olympic Games. The decision was declared on July the 8th by the government to curb a recent surge in infections. Under the state of emergency, restaurants will be prohibited from serving alcohol and shopping malls should be closed by 8 p.m. The state of emergency will last until August the 22nd. The Tokyo Olympics are set to run from July the 23rd to August the 8th and will be held behind closed doors.
Waves of COVID-19 infections have overwhelmed Japan's medical system. At the height of each outbreak, beds were unavailable in many of the country's intensive care units. Some hospitals were even forced to turn patients away to care facilities in other regions.
Even now, Japan's healthcare system is already in a tight situation where we can't save lives that we should be able to save, like COVID patients. Even general patients like people in traffic accidents and people with heart problems can't be admitted because we have so many COVID patients.
Shinobu Morita is president of the Japan Federation of Medical Workers Unions and a retired nurse. The federation represents around 170,000 doctors and nurses across Japan. The group says they need as many people as they can get to help fight COVID, and the call for volunteer doctors by the Games organizers could do more harm than good when Japan's medical system is already stretched thin.
We're short on doctors and nurses already, and we're in a situation right now where we have to face this infectious disease together. If some fall sick, or if they're otherwise no longer in the field, I think the situation will get even worse.
But the Japan Sport Association says it received some 400 applications for the 200 volunteer slots.
Some who have offered to pitch in are retirees. Others are in private practice or have no connection to treating COVID-19 patients. Others still are seeing less patients because people are staying indoors and putting off that next visit to the doctor.
But for Masahiro Ogino, he felt he had the skills and the experience, and he just wants to help out.
I volunteered because I was interested, simple as that. I figured if the Olympics were coming to Japan and I could use my own knowledge and expertise to help out, then I'd like to give it a try. My curiosity was the biggest thing.
Ogino is a neurosurgeon at a university hospital north of Tokyo and actively works with high school and adult teams in his spare time as a sports doctor. He says that Japan prides itself on making sure it gets the job done even in an emergency, and he wants to make sure hurt athletes can get the care they need in those critical first few minutes. But he's worried that he may endanger patients at his hospital.
The measures the Olympics are taking for COVID-19 are full of holes, so I do all of this preparation and wanting to help out, but the place I'm going could end up being a focal point of the pandemic. I've asked myself if it's really okay for me to be going out there. It made me really ambivalent about the situation.
The Olympic and Paralympic committees have gone to great lengths to reassure the Japanese public that the Games will be as safe as they can be.
In the weeks before and during Tokyo 2020, Game stakeholders will be amongst the most tested individuals on Earth, as we take all measures possible to mitigate the risk of COVID-19 transmission. Safety at all times is our top priority for Game stakeholders, and importantly, the people of Tokyo and the people of Japan.
But as a fifth wave of infections rises, the Japanese public is on edge. The surge in cases of the highly contagious Delta and Delta Plus variants around the world has added to fears that the Olympics could become a super spreader event that will test Japan's medical system again. John Matthews, CGTN, Tokyo.
Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi kicked off his 5-day trip to Central Asia on Monday. Wang will visit Turkmenistan, Tajikistan and Uzbekistan. He's also scheduled to attend meetings at the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, where foreign ministers of the member countries will discuss solutions to the Afghan conflict. Meanwhile, the Afghan government says it has repelled an assault by the Taliban in Takhar, a key northern province bordering Tajikistan. The Defense Ministry says over a dozen Taliban fighters were killed in airstrikes. It comes amid a string of recent attacks launched by the insurgents as US and European troops withdraw from the country. Afghan authorities say they've installed an anti-missile system at Kabul airport to counter incoming rockets. President Ashraf Ghani is calling on the Taliban to put down their weapons.
Let's ask the Taliban a couple of questions. First, who are you fighting for? Are you fighting for Afghanistan, or do you want Afghanistan to be under the control of others? If you love Afghanistan, promise me that you have not accepted the Durand Line. Promise me that you will not change Afghanistan from a crossroads to a one-way road. Promise me that you will not sell Afghanistan's water to others. Promise me that you will not serve others.
Elsewhere, Haiti's national police chief has told reporters they have arrested one of the suspected masterminds in the assassination of President Jovenel Moïse.
Christian Emmanuel Sanon, who is now under police control, was in contact with a Venezuelan company specializing in security located in the United States. The police have blocked the advance of these bandits, who, after having committed the crime, one of them contacted Christian Emmanuel Sanon. They also contacted two other persons that were recognized as the masterminds of the assassination of the President Jovenel Moïse.
The police chief also said the arrested man flew to Haiti on a private jet in early June. Police only said Sanon's motives were political. They said one of those in custody had contacted him upon being arrested. Sanon then contacted two others of the assassination. Public records show a man with Sanon's name worked as a doctor in Florida, but it was not immediately clear if it was the same person. Nor was it clear why Sanon would want to topple Moïse. Moïse was shot dead early on Wednesday at his Port-au-Prince home. Police have arrested 18 Colombians and 3 Haitian Americans, including Sanon. 5 Colombians are still at large and 3 were killed. Well, it's time for us to take a quick break. Here's what's coming up on the program. Climate change effects in focus as different parts of the world experience extreme weather patterns.
Nigeria is my home. 160 million vibrant, ambitious individuals constantly seeking the perfect self-expression. It is these people who inspired me to be that person that is seen, to be a voice that is heard, and ultimately to be the anchor that I am. I have to tap in, tune in, and turn on the very best qualities within me to deliver the news. I'm Richard Nta, an anchor for CGTN.
I try to not let it affect me, but there are days when it does. I'm a human being, and to see patients in a hospital bed and their family members are not there, there's no one there to hold their hand, that human touch, you know?
I just hope everyone can remember that the situation is not permanent and that everything will get better eventually.
Welcome back. You're watching Africa Live. Now, large parts of northern and central China are on high alert over heavy rain and secondary disasters. The national forecaster has a yellow alert, the third highest in the country's 4-tier weather warning system. Downpours have hit the capital Beijing, Tianjin, as well as parts of Hebei, Shaanxi, and Shandong provinces. Forecasters say parts of Beijing and nearby Hebei are expected to see up to 280 millimeters of rainfall. In Beijing, middle and primary schools as well as kindergartens are closed on Monday. At least 14 rivers across China are reporting flood risks in areas including Sichuan and Shaanxi provinces. Authorities are also warning of landslides. While southwest China's Sichuan province has also been hit by downpours with growing risks of secondary disasters. Nicole Ang reports from the provincial capital, Chengdu.
Here in southwest China, we've seen heavy rains batter certain areas since Friday, so throughout the course of this entire weekend. We know that in one place, over 25 centimeters of rain fell in just 24 hours. That just gives you a sense of how heavy, how unrelenting these rainstorms have been. We know from local authorities on Sunday that 10 cities and towns in the province's east side have seen flooding. It's affected over 500,000 people, and we know, luckily, however, we've seen no reports of any casualties, nobody missing so far. That's in large part thanks to the work of local rescue crews. They've been out there making sure that people who found themselves stranded or trapped have gotten the help that they need. The latest update from provincial authorities is that they've now downgraded the alert level for Sichuan province to the lowest. They say that this round of very intense rainfall has now finally come to an end. Those rivers in that eastern part of the province are seeing the water levels slowly come down, and so the challenge ahead, the focus for authorities will be that cleanup process, as well as getting those people who have been affected the help that they need.
To the United States now, where California is registering some of the hottest temperatures on the planet. A brutal heat wave has been recorded for a third day in a row, and temperatures are set to continue on their upward trend this week. Let's now have a look at how the extreme heat waves are affecting locals and tourists in the desert city of Palm Springs.
The desert city of Palm Springs is a tourist hotspot, and visitors here are trying to cool themselves from the blistering heat.
I don't feel places like this should exist. It's too hot. It's too hot. I'm drinking as much water as I can. I'm drinking my weight in water every day. It's the only way I feel I can not pass out.
Our friends have a swimming pool, so we've been jumping in there in the morning, although by the evening it's over 95 degrees in the swimming pool. Yeah. So just that and drinking lots of beer, lots of lager.
Local restaurants have installed misters on their outdoor patios in an effort to keep diners cool. But with temperatures early Sunday afternoon reaching 45 degrees Celsius, they had little impact. Popsicles quickly melted in the sun as the heat index rose. And in Death Valley in California, a fiery 54 degrees Celsius has been registered making it again one of the world's hottest places.
Well, we just arrived, so the heat hasn't really affected us yet, but we pulled up and decided to get ice cream. And then we're going to go, we rented a house, we're going to stay there. Hopefully air conditioning's running well, and we're going to be in the pool most of the time.
The U.S. National Weather Service has issued excessive heat warnings across much of the region. The Weather Service has also cautioned residents, saying the high temperatures could be hazardous to their health, especially to small children and the elderly. Daniel Arab Moy, CGTN.
Now, the China National Space Administration says its Mars mission is going well. The Zhurong probe has driven 410 meters on the red planet and is functioning as it should. The Tianwen-1 orbiter has run for 353 days. Last year, on July the 23rd, a Long March rocket blasted off with the orbiter that is in charge of communication, a lander and a rover. 10 months later, on May the 15th, the lander carrying Zhurong touched down in the southern part of Utopia Planitia. It is a vast plain in the northern hemisphere of Mars. China is the second nation after the United States to land and operate a rover on Mars. Zhurong has been sending images back to Earth as part of its 3-month mission. Well, China has granted official approval to 13 research institutions to study the lunar samples brought back by Chang'e 5 probe last December. The Lunar Exploration and Space Program Center of China National Space Administration held a ceremony in Beijing, handing out the first batch of lunar samples to these institutions. The 13 research centers were selected from a field of 31 research proposals submitted. The local rocks, lunar rocks and soil collected by the Chinese probe are the latest obtained from the moon in 44 years. Meanwhile, commercial space tourism company Virgin Galactic has completed its first successful manned travel to space. Founder Sir Richard Branson says the company's mission is to make space more accessible to all. Our John Zarella has more.
From the moment Richard Branson founded Virgin Galactic 17 years ago, the billionaire has been focused on reaching this day, this goal. Before the flight, he shared a picture of himself with friend and SpaceX founder Elon Musk, who was there to cheer Branson on. Then, tucked beneath a massive mothership called Eve, the Unity spaceplane with Branson on board, along with 3 Virgin employees and 2 pilots, took off from Spaceport America in the New Mexico desert. Under a clear morning sky, the mothership climbed to nearly 45,000 feet, nearly 14,000 meters.
2, 1, release, release, release.
Moments later,
ignition.
Unity's rocket engine fired and the spaceplane catapulted upward.
There's Mach 1 trimming now.
Ultimately reaching 2,300 miles per hour. That's 3,700 kilometers per hour. At the edge of space, some 80 kilometers above the Earth, Unity's engine was shut down.
And 60 seconds, and that is a full duration burn, folks. We are headed to space.
Hey. For about 2 minutes, Branson and his team floated weightless in the cabin. A jubilant 70-year-old Branson had finally been to space.
To all you kids down there, I was once a child with a dream, looking up to the stars. Now I'm an adult in a spaceship with lots of other wonderful adults looking down to our beautiful, beautiful Earth.
On final.
The spaceplane then glided back to Earth, touching down gently on the runway.
Main gear touchdown.
This is the dream come true. What comes next will be more significant, revolutionizing space travel. By next year, Branson hopes to be flying paying customers. The price tag, at least $250,000 a seat. And little more than a week from now, another billionaire, Amazon founder Jeff Bezos, will fly in his rocket company Blue Origin's New Shepard spacecraft.
It really wasn't a race. We wish Jeff the absolute best, and the people who are going up with him during his flight.
That flight will take him and his passengers more than 60 miles up. He too hopes to be flying paying customers by next year.
Now, many countries across the world are grappling with the question of just how to safely dispose of electronic waste. In 2019, the Global E-Waste Monitor found that Africa generated 2.9 million tons of electronic and electrical waste. The continent, however, recycles less than 1% of this waste. CGTN's Wilkista Nyabwa spoke to a group seeking to tackle that problem.
There is never an idle moment in this corner of Ngara Market on the outskirts of Nairobi. Technicians are busy taking apart old electronic devices and building new ones from the old parts.
I've learned that you don't need to throw away things right away. Find a workman and see if it can be repaired. You can't always buy new devices.
Electronic waste management is an idea championed in this market by the organization Electronic Waste Initiative Kenya. Every day, thousands of devices are discarded from offices and homes. When an electronic appliance is faulty or has reached the end of its life, it's easy to simply discard it into the environment and purchase a new one. However, one of the ways in which electronic waste can be managed is by having it refurbished or dismantling it in order to prolong the life of another appliance.
Those ones that can be refurbished, we proceed and refurbish them. Then we resell them. And those that cannot, that are beyond repair, we have partners who do recycling.
Electronic waste, or e-waste, is one of the fastest growing waste streams in the world. According to the United Nations Global E-Waste Monitor 2020, Africa generated 2.9 million tons of electrical and electronic waste in 2019. It recycles less than 1% of that amount. The rest often ends up being mixed with ordinary waste in dump sites and landfills. Some elements found in e-waste can cause cancer.
The illegal disposal of these in communities or in rivers that actually result to not only contaminating this water that people drink that will inflict problems in their bodies, but more importantly, the fact that it also litters and destroys the environment.
Analysts believe part of the answer lies in regulating e-waste management through policy changes. Rwanda is one of only 13 countries in Africa that have passed national legislation on e-waste regulation.
They have set up a plan that can process 10,000 metric tons of e-waste a year. And this is mining at minerals worth $66 million each and every year.
As an incentive, EWIC pays collectors for electronic waste collected and brought to the center. Bit by bit, they are showing the rest of the country the way.
We have adopted a circular economy model whereby when you pick these things, you can be able to innovate around, and also you can be able to recover precious metals like gold, palladium, silver.
Managing e-waste, they believe, could be the key to not only safeguarding the planet, but to also help unlock future opportunities for many. Wilkista Nyabwa, CGTN.
Now, in Canada, scientists say a heat wave along Canada's Pacific coast could have killed as many as 1 billion marine animals. Here is CGTN's Wanja Mungai with more.
Dunman Island in Canada's British Columbia. Its pristine clear waters are home to many sea creatures. But recently, a deadly heat wave reaching as high as 50 degrees Celsius has been threatening the ecosystem. Most of the shellfish along the Salish coastline have met a fiery ending.
Like this one here is freshly dead.
Because it's opened up?
This used to be alive?
Yeah.
Now there's nothing.
Joe Tanowski's family has been trading in the seafood business for 65 years. But with climate change posing dangers to the trade, he fears more losses could be on the way.
Basically cooked the oysters, clams, mussels. Most of the mussels around here now are all gone. My clams, you can see the sand dollars and stuff, were all dead. Probably about between 30 and 40% of my oysters and the clams are a little higher. They really didn't like the heat.
Scientists say some creatures like mussels thrive between the land and water meeting points. They are said to have ability to hold water to protect themselves from heat, but the recent heat waves have been beyond their control. Most of them have been lying dead along the shores. Scientists warn that so far, an estimated 1 billion marine animals have been lost to the weather anomaly.
You can find
between 50 and 100 dead mussels in an area that's just about the size of a coaster. And if you scale that up to something the size of your stovetop, there might be a few thousand. And if you think of how many stovetops might fit in an area like Stanley Park in Vancouver, and then how many Stanley Parks can fit in the entire Salish Sea, you rapidly get to some really large numbers.
The United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change says climate change is the 21st century's greatest threat to humanity. The IPCC also says that if carbon emissions are not reduced to pre-industrial levels, nature is bound to revenge. Heatwaves are predicted to continue being more recurrent in 5 to 10 years intervals. Wanja Mungai, CGTN.
Right, and here is a quick reminder of our top stories. In South Africa, riots have broken out in former President Jacob Zuma's home province of KwaZulu-Natal following his imprisonment. Shops and cars were looted and damaged overnight on Sunday. Riots also spread to the highway. Police said criminals were taking advantage of the anger of Jacob Zuma's supporters. A COVID-19 state of emergency is kicked in Japan's capital, Tokyo, which is just 11 days away from the opening of the Summer Olympic Games. Restaurants will be prohibited from serving alcohol and shopping malls should be closed by 8 p.m. The state of emergency will last until August the 22nd. The Tokyo Olympics are set to run from July the 23rd to August the 8th and will be held behind closed doors. And the Afghan government says it has repelled an assault by the Taliban in Takhar, a key northern province bordering Tajikistan. This comes amid a string of recent attacks launched by the insurgents as US and European troops withdraw from the country. Afghan authorities say they've installed an anti-missile system at Kabul airport to counter incoming rockets. And those are just some of the top stories here on Africa Live. Well, here's what's coming up in the business. Egypt nets a record $5.84 billion from the Suez Canal in the 2020-2021 financial year.
There's more to this place than just glorious landscapes. There's more to it than just, say, Table Mountain or glorious, endless salt flats. There's more to it than countries that are home to some of the deepest mines in the world. There is so much more to this place, even if it is home to some of the finest diamonds on the planet. It is the sheer diversity of the people who call Southern Africa home and the relentless drive to make it a better place that make it so special. And we know that because this too is home. No one knows Southern Africa like we do. CGTN, see the difference.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
And it's time for the business now. The Suez Canal netted Egypt a record $5.84 billion in the 2020-2021 financial year, the head of the Suez Canal Authority has said. The increase in revenue came despite the outbreak of the coronavirus pandemic, which affected world trade, as well as a 6-day blockage of the busy waterway by a giant cargo ship. The North African state had raked in $5.72 billion in the previous year. Egypt, which takes a toll from ships traversing the canal, said that the crisis cost it as much as $15 million a day, while maritime insurers estimated the cost to world trade would be in the billions. Staying in North Africa, Tunisia has been ranked 59th on the Global Food Security Index. The annual assessment takes into account issues such as access, availability, and safety of food. The Tunisian government plans to introduce several reforms to its food production system to guarantee food security for its 12 million citizens.
Tunisia's acting Minister of Agriculture, Water Resources and Fisheries explained that the food system in the country has improved following the evolution of production and productivity. the government has implemented several agricultural development programs to preserve natural resources, extend irrigated farming, and diversify competitive products.
Despite the progress to achieve food security in Tunisia, today there's a national emergency due to many factors. We're adapting the production system to the challenges of weather instability, global warming, and water scarcity.
The representative of the Food and Agriculture Organization, FAO, in Tunisia, explained that agriculture is the largest water user globally. The expert added that water scarcity is one of the main challenges for food systems in the country.
Unfortunately, we are in a country where there is relatively little water, which affects food production. So we need to reform the whole approach of agriculture to integrate this dimension of water scarcity. Let's rethink how, where, and what to produce due to climate change as well. The food system is facing many challenges.
Philip Ankers also noted that the whole production and distribution cycle in Tunisia and the world was affected by the COVID-19 pandemic.
The impact of the COVID-19 crisis on agriculture was very harsh, especially due to the lockdowns. The businesses were shut down and people stayed at home to fight against the health crisis. This had a direct impact on agriculture and farmers who were unable to commercialize their products. Many products were hit hard, like fisheries and some vegetables. Unfortunately, the pandemic generated a drop in income for consumers and many products were left unsold.
According to the Agriculture Department, Tunisia has achieved self-sufficiency in the production of dairy products, white meat, vegetables and fruit. However, the country still imports 50% of cereals intended for consumption, 60% of which are intended to meet fodder needs. Tunisia will take part in the World Summit on Food Systems that the UN plans to hold in September 2021. Authorities in Tunis believe in the importance of reflecting on a new food system in Tunisia in light of the challenges facing the country. Adnan Shawashi, CGTN, Tunis.
Over 3,000 companies have been showcasing their products at Tanzania's biggest trade fair in Dar es Salaam. The 16-day fair, which is organized by Tanzania's Board of External Trade, is now marking its 45th edition and is themed Industrial Economy for Sustainable Employment. CGTN's Daniel Kijo now reports.
For 45 years straight, Dar es Salaam's International Trade Fair has been the biggest shopping, trade and business showcase in Tanzania. But each year, the theme is different. Sustainable employment is the focus here. Despite the festivities, the government says it still ensures COVID-19 precautionary measures are being maintained.
We have put sanitizers everywhere. We also have requested attendees wear masks. This is to make sure we stop the spread of new infections, but the trade fair has continued as normal.
The fair is split into 3 special zones: the agriculture zone, the mining zone, and the industrial and entrepreneurs area. In these zones, exhibitors showcase and sell their products and access local and foreign markets. This year, the exhibition has drawn over 3,000 local and international companies. There are 75 exhibitors from 15 countries, and at 45 years old, this trade fair still has one mission: to facilitate more trade, sales and business development, something much needed in the wake of COVID-19. Of the 75 international exhibitors, almost half are from China. Nathan Kuijun says 33 companies from Shandong province have come to showcase a variety of products.
We Chinese people here to help them to do the business. We sell them very good Chinese stuff, Chinese goods to them with the real price and very, very good quality.
Tan Trade Board Chairman Gwanza Kamata says thousands of visitors are attracted by the waves of new products and innovations on display. But the show is also an opportunity for capacity building.
At this show, we get people who come in with new technologies on how to make products or new ways of packaging products, labeling, etc., so as to be attractive. So when this happens, big and small local companies get to learn these new alternative production methods.
Despite the impacts of COVID-19, the show must go on. It is hoped that the safety measures taken will help the trade fair be a big success. Daniel Kijo, CGTN, Dar es Salaam.
And taking you back to Egypt, where the country is seeking to regulate the use of three-wheeled vehicles, popularly known as tuk-tuks. CGTN's Joy Kiruki Juma now reports.
The tuk-tuk, a nuisance to some as they weave through traffic on Egypt's chaotic city streets. To others, they're a cheap way to get from A to B in a fraction of time. Now, the government wants to regulate the three-wheeled motorized rickshaws by introducing a national licensing system. The government is also urging drivers to convert to natural gas-powered minibuses.
This tuk-tuk is our life and our future. We don't care about licensing. We don't care about a car worth millions. I am disabled and suffer from paralysis. I can go get a car, but it won't benefit me the way this small machine helps me. It feeds my children and feeds me.
The government says licensing tuk-tuks will help trace those responsible for accidents or crimes. It will also tame underage driving and provide drivers with insurance and a pension.
Yes, there are a lot of flaws. Children sometimes ride it. But everything has positives and negatives. The authorities previously told us to issue police license, so we issued them. That could be a solution. Or they could ask us to go register with the district and pay taxes every year. Maybe they could change the appearance of the tuk-tuk.
These licenses are granted to the owners of the tuk-tuk so that it is safe to drive on the street. Therefore, the citizen who uses the tuk-tuk will feel safe because he is riding in a vehicle that has become regulated and has a legal status, and its data is known.
Some drivers have welcomed the licensing plan. They are, however, opposed to trading in their tuk-tuks for minivans.
If they will license the tuk-tuks, then I agree. But the thing about a car, how will I pay the installments? What about the apartment rentals? I want one thing, this tuk-tuk. I'm willing to license and drive it. Everyone is pleased with the tuk-tuk. It is good, and the fare is only 5 Egyptian pounds. We take the customer everywhere. Even if the customer wants to go up the stairs, we help them carry their bags up the stairs, then help them come down, then we leave. But a minibus won't assist customers to their homes. The most they will do is let them come off at the beginning of the street.
Some residents have hailed the tuk-tuk as a blessing.
This gives us comfort when we are tired. Whenever I call him, he comes straight away and takes me wherever I want to go. If I take a car, I will have to wait for an hour or two by the time it gets here. But this is always here on the street. It's a mercy for people who are ailing, or for someone who has an errand to run, to make it to work on time, or to catch the minibus on time.
Officials estimate there may be as many as 4 million tuk-tuks in Egypt, which are either unlicensed or licensed under varying local rules. Joy Kiruki Juma, CGTN.
And still to come here on Africa Live. We tell you how a newly launched youth initiative in Somalia is seeking to help conserve the country's environment.
The greatest journeys, the greatest sights, the greatest adventures.
Here in Qanater, this weir allows the locals to walk on water.
We're far more than just TV news. We're your passport to the wonders of Africa.
To bring you stories of struggle, survival and hope.
So let's explore. CGTN. See the difference.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Welcome back to Somalia, where a youth initiative has led to the opening of the country's first ecology and environment-friendly center. The initiative aims to conserve the country's natural resources and also teach the importance of biodiversity conservation through various innovative methods, among other things. The center will also provide training on sanitation, research on environmental problems, and teach the community how to start small businesses which are also eco-friendly. Somalia has recently witnessed major effects of climate change, such as prolonged drought, recurrent floods, and locust invasions. The federal government's mitigation efforts are, however, being weakened by financial constraints and security challenges.
I believe the Eco Hub is going to change in a good way the way things are done in Somalia, about people becoming more environmentally aware of their surroundings, of the importance of not using plastics, the importance of planting trees, different plants, and just being aware of Dalkena, you know. So, and I think that's an idea that Somali people, we all need to adapt, and we all need to adopt this idea wholeheartedly to implement change into our country.
We will address many environmental challenges that we face today. We will publish researches addressing the environmental problems that we face in Somalia and in Mogadishu particularly. We will carry out campaigns to clean the city. We will also raise awareness on the collection and management of trash in the city. We will encourage small-scale businesses that will be able to turn the trash in the city to reusable products.
Now, an increase in kidnappings targeting schools in northern Nigeria has negatively affected education in the country. Over 1,000 students have been abducted since December. Phil Ihaza reports from Abuja.
Falmata Usman now lives here with her family after relocating from Borno State to Abuja last year. She says they had to escape the kidnappings and terror.
Our town was being attacked, houses burned, and we couldn't stay. So my husband and I had to take our children out of school, and we ran here to Abuja for safety.
Not everyone has managed to escape that wave of insecurity like Falmata. Since December, around 1,000 students in northern Nigeria have been kidnapped. The United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization says kidnappings in schools have increased. UNESCO puts the number of abducted students in recent attacks at 348 after more than 100 students were kidnapped from Kaduna State earlier this month.
This is something that must be treated as a national security emergency. It has to be an all-out war, a concise surgical military operation with clinical precision to take out criminal headsmen from our communities, from our towns, from our villages, and decimate them as much as possible, secure our borders, tighten border security, and make sure we do not see influx of people across the border.
In 2014, the UN launched a Safe School initiative in Nigeria after nearly 300 schoolgirls were kidnapped in Borno State. The program was focused on promoting safe zones for education, rebuilding schools, and boosting the presence of security agencies. It involved teachers, parents, police, and leaders in the affected communities. However, the program was discontinued after a new administration assumed office in 2015.
Northern Nigeria has been classified since from the early 70s as an educationally disadvantaged region in Nigeria. So requiring certain, form of affirmative actions to prop up more access to education for children from Northern Nigeria. And so with this latest onslaught on educational facilities, of course, the North will sink deeper into educational depression, such that all gains made in the last 50 years to lift the North out of educational disadvantage would have been reversed substantially.
President Muhammadu Buhari has condemned the attacks on schools, which he warns could badly hit the country's already struggling education sector.
The Kaduna State government has also closed down 13 schools indefinitely, while security operatives intensify efforts to find and rescue the missing students. It's part of a directive from President Buhari for security agencies to act swiftly in search of the abducted victims in all the affected states.
Those efforts to restore security need to bear fruit soon if people like Falmata are to feel safer in their communities. Phil Ihaza, CGTN, Abuja.
Right, and here are your sports headlines. Italy crowned European football champions after beating England on penalties at Wembley. Well, we start with football and the final of Euro 2020 that saw England host Italy at a packed Wembley.